Hello. Uh, so this is the first one of these I've ever done, and it's not really a tutorial, but it's more of a sculpting process video. Far be it from me to believe anyone should do as I do, right? Or as I say. But I took the time and, set up the camera and shit because I wanted to record um, just the amount of work that goes into one of these things and the different techniques that I use and sort of what it is like on my turntable when I think of making something. And so this, I didn't have a direct reference I was working from, and I think that becomes clear as there are a lot of false starts for, ideas that didn't work out or things that I decided to abandon. And that's one thing I like about sculpting is that the process is more free-form than, say, like painting and drawing. There are no sketch lines you need to get married to immediately. And at least if you're working like this, you're not working from somebody's concept. So what I'm doing, the general rhythm, right, is pack on clay, and then chisel it back, and pack on more clay, and chisel it back, and sort of add, then subtract, and add, then subtract, and add, then subtract, until it's done, essentially. Sorry about my squeaky chair. So what I'm doing, I'm using the loop tool here, and symmetry. If you're, doing something which is, found in nature, there's usually an element of symmetry to any kind of living model or something that's based on, a natural phenomenon or, like a human being, in this case. So, being a, keeping that consistent throughout is like a constant battle, right? When you're packing clay on. So what you do to the left side, it has to be the same amount of clay added to the right side, with some exceptions, like, if you're adding expression or, intentionally doing something asymmetrical. But your foundation has to be, it has to look right or else it's going to look wonky, and everybody, even people who aren't artists are going to see that, oh man, that cheek is kind of bigger than the other one, and they won't be able to put their finger exactly on why it's fucked up, but they'll know, so a lot of my like RAM in my brain and time spent is getting these little chunks of clay that I'm smushing into this model to be the same size, and you'll kind of see both hands doing the same thing and making a little, sphere or rod or whatever, dividing it, dividing one lump of clay into two equal ones to apply to the model. And I'm using a little butane torch also to do quick heats. It's monster clay, it's wax based, so think of like normal clay, it responds to moisture. It's a softness or hardness, right? This stuff responds to heat, and so I'm getting heat out of my little copper mug that is on a little heating element to keep your coffee warm, which gets it to just about the perfect temperature for it to be fluid, but not to be like scalding to touch. And it doesn't get it too hot that the clay separates, that the wax separates from the, whatever else is in it. It's like dirt. I really don't know very much about the chemical composition. Here I'm trying a new little thing. It looks sort of silly with these flosser sticks, but I wanted the nostrils to be of equal size, and I like using the butt ends of my tools for more coarse work and kind of like using the sides of them, partially because like, I don't want to find a new tool, right? I want to like keep working because like the ideas that I have in the middle of a sculpt are kind of fleeting, so I end up using tools not for their intended purpose a lot of the time. So here I'm getting the cranial shape correct, and putting the ears in. Like you don't have to use flossers. That's just what I happen to have on my work table. It's kind of my everything table. Hygiene, real work, creativity, all of it kind of all happens here. So there's a bunch of whack shit that is scattered all over the desk. So what else? What else is interesting? Doing lips is really hard because they gotta look right. Lips and eyes are sort of the places where you have to be the most careful because they're delicate, and just one, if you mar them at all, it's very, very obvious that you screwed up. Because that's where people look on a face, or at least that's where I look when I'm looking at somebody, is kind of the eyes and the mouth. The nose, you've got a lot more play with, right? You can get like a weird, crazy, outsized or sort of exaggerated nose, right? Which is really fun sometimes, but yeah, the mouth and the eyes need to look, mechanically believable. Yeah, getting that spot in the skull where the jaw muscle connects, nice and, the correct shape or close to it. Here I brought my little skull out for reference. It's another thing that's on my desk all the time, whether I'm using it or not. It's kind of a, it prompts questions that are difficult to answer quickly from people who say are, spending the night in our spare room, which is my office. Like, why do you have a human skeleton? And why do you have all these dental tools? And what is it you do for a living again? So anyway, yeah, using the reference of the skull to get the sinus bones and, the ocular sort of rim. I don't know all the right anatomical terms for it. As you can see, it's kind of taking shape. It looks, looking more like a human face. The torso is still pretty rough, so I'm going to cover some of that up and kind of make it clean. And just kind of put that curtain over the top of it and mold a little clavicle in. I wanted the nose to kind of be broad in this. I like a big nose on that character. You can kind of say a lot about a person's attitude with their nose, I think, and it's the thing that interrupts the silhouette of the face. For character design, like the nose is very powerful. In my opinion. Yeah. So back musculature, and I'm still not awesome at the back anatomy, right? It's just important that it's the correct form, so I'm not really sticking to like a hard, anatomical diagram with this. I'm just kind of generally fudging it in, and, it's not a bodybuilder. There's not going to be like standing cords of muscle for the viewer to enjoy on this back, and getting the shape right. This is part of the chisel back, and yeah, you want it to, a lot of times when I build something, I notice that it's like just a stiff block and there's no organic shapes to it at all. And I neglect it because the face is the interesting part, right? But like when you're working in 3D, it has to look cool from every single angle, and have kind of an even coat of work over the whole thing. If you're in 2D, you really only have to worry about your subject from the one angle in your final illustration. But 3D is different. It's more forgiving in some ways, and in other ways it's a much higher workload. Here I'm saying fuck it to doing arms and shoulders. I'm going to do more of a traditional bust, because I don't want to have to think about it. It's kind of a lazy move, but it's also compositionally more interesting, and it draws the eye up to the face. And like, this isn't really about the upper arm and the shoulder. This is about the sort of the face and neck and how it connects to a body. It's really all I needed. Here I'm chiseling in that divot that men sometimes have. I guess some women do too, but it's kind of a masculine feature between the nose and the brow. Here I am redoing the lips again. I'm going to redo the hard parts a lot because, I kind of work toward them in increments, using the butt of the tool to get kind of a round, soft shape. I did all of this without my favorite tool. My favorite tool kind of looks like a spoon, or like it looks like a little cocaine spoon on one end, and it's just sort of a sharp, tapered needle on the other, and it's the best for doing organic shapes. carving in some lines. I think I end up abandoning the like eyebrow ridge idea. That's an Apple Pencil that's broken, and it's gone from being a very expensive piece of electronic equipment to being a clay tool. Get that skull shape right. Just get that skull shape right, you know. And with the heat, you can just use the thumb and really erase all, mark making you've done on the surface, which is pretty nice. I really like that little blowtorch. It gets the clay a little bit too hot if you're not really careful. Like, it's a dangerously powerful tool for smoothing, but it's so quick and convenient, and it's a little bit more precise than the heat gun, which is like a giant, circle of heat, and you can't really just like kiss a little part of the model with fire the way you can with my little butane creme brulee torch. So getting that under the jaw thing, looking lifelike, and I like to just work without tools, work with my hands. This part is a smoothing technique where you just go over with a wire brush slowly and kind of unify in a way erase, but also sort of unify the just one texture for all the skin, right? And you can get rid of like places where two lumps of clay might not have perfectly joined up, and just kind of make it all look like it's made out of the same stuff for a second. It's kind of a wall. It's almost like an ink wash in drawing. Here's a quick, like gray halftone to the whole thing, so you can sort of see the shapes for what they are. And you melt it back down with my little blowtorch, using the side of the tool to like imply some planes and divots in the skull and in the cheeks. That's kind of an eraser for textures. It's not the most delicate. Oh, here, this is a failed idea. This I'm trying to make. I got these plastic BBs I use for eyes sometimes on some of the bigger models, and I'm trying to drill a hole in them. And so I make a little guide hole, and that clay fails to hold it in place. Here, just try it again, idiot. There you go. Put it in there. Oh, it got stuck, huh? Okay, well, when at first you don't succeed, change out that drill bit. Change out that drill. Yeah, you see? So you can kind of see the basic idea. This didn't end up working. Spoiler. This one got very stuck inside. Ended up pulling off the actual head of the pin. That's stupid. I include this because I don't want to give the impression that I always know exactly what I'm doing. In fact, most of the time I really don't. It's just like an act of play and discovery. So this part you might not like to look at, but you're digging out the orbit, and I really hated the way this ended up looking with these pupils. Like, they're not the same size exactly. You had to kind of like increase the flat plane on that sphere to match the other one, and they just look like fucking goofy. And there's no way to put a highlight in that either. So I opted for just a plain white orbs, and push them in, get them in the right depth. They're still a little bit bulging. Give him that middle-aged sort of doughy back, I'm still not super happy with how the neck connects to the head. You want to do arms? No, don't do arms. You melt it down, smooth it out. There's a lot of like repeating steps over and over and over again, as you can kind of step back and get critical and decide what your model needs. And we're getting that jaw so that it is in front of the ear hole. Here's a failed attempt at eyelids. This one takes a while too before I learn it's bullshit. I try to do both. I try to do the upper lid and then the lower lid. Here, watch this. Watch me fuck up. And they don't connect, and so I give up. Right. I'm just going to do both lids at once and just cut out a little hole where there's an opening and try to make it look more like a lifelike eyelid later. But this is super vital for the emotion that your model conveys, right? And I like him kind of sleepy, you know. And now that he's got lids over his eyes, he sort of looks like he's got bulging eyes, you know. Like if I would have set him deeper into the skull, it would have looked more anatomically correct. But now he looks a little more like some people really look like this, you know. And that's not a bad thing, but it's memorable, right? And so I was thinking about the guy from the first Predator film, who's not the black guy who's not Carl Weathers, Bill Duke, because he's got kind of these like dead, bulging eyes, and so I was thinking about him a lot as I was making this man's face. And it's not like an exact likeness of Bill Duke, but there's some Bill Duke in there. Yeah, make those cheekbones kind of pop out, and yeah, yep, still doing it. I wanted to shave down some of those over-exaggerated cheekbones and sinus bones in the skull, because it's, you know, I believe in like doing the work and then hiding that work was done to try and make the final product look like more effortless, right? It's like a Frank Miller drawing, right? Like so much of the work of those drawings, the sketches and stuff, at least I imagine, are covered by these huge fields of black, you know, and it's a really understated and cool way to work, you know, that sort of makes it look more like magic, which is you know, at odds with the purposes of this video. You know, I don't want it to seem like magic. I want it to be, you know, to show that it's just a matter of tenacity, really, to do this, and with some anatomy, right, and some skill over time. But you only get that skill if you are tenacious, and I'm trying to keep being tenacious. Oh, the ears. God, I hate doing ears. Man. Yeah. Ears go from looking okay and passable and cartoony to just like terrible really fast. You know, the higher you shoot for, you know, toward realism with ears, they're just really, really hard for me. That's something I gotta work on. I'm not all the way proud of these ears. But here they are. They'll probably be better in the next video. Because there's so many like little fiddly ridges, you know, and you got to get them right. You know, it's like anatomy. Like people even who don't study anatomy have an inborn understanding of it just from like being a fucking human being. Yeah, so I kind of gave up on working on those ears, which are like very not symmetrical, you know. At this point, I think I'm gonna go back and do a pass on them later. But yeah, I'm smoothing that shit down, giving him some head stubble. I think this is, I don't think that this stubble ends up making the cut. I think I end up redoing this later. But he's kind of looking more alive now, right? He's got those ridges in his forehead, which I think I also abandoned later. Here's another failure. I was thinking, you know, I'm new at this creme brulee torch, so I thought I could use it to melt a vein in. Didn't work. Now I know. I'm smoothing him out, getting him nice and smooth. And he looks like greased up, kind of. Yeah, here's some excellent camera work. It's hard because as I do this, the camera is right between my wrists, essentially. It's like between me and the model, which makes it kind of hard to work, but it's the only way to really record the process with any fidelity without my hands being in the way of the camera, or, you know, and also to have the shot be demonstrative of what's actually happening. You know, but I'm thinking about getting a tripod and setting it up and doing like an over-the-shoulder thing, because I couldn't do fine facial details with the camera between me and the piece, as you'll see later. Here I am chiseling on that back, chiseling it back. Yeah, getting that collarbone looking a little more realistic and less exaggerated. I have this obsession with collarbones. I love collarbones on people. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but I like that pit that they have. Anyway, here's fine facial details. You see my hand is in the shot a lot of the time, and it's a little further back. But I had to have better access to the model, so I hope you forgive this. Yeah, yeah, just gonna kind of keep doing a fine version of what I was doing the whole rest of the time. And this is when he really starts looking more like Bill Duke. You know, I think I had Googled who Bill Duke, you know, the actor's name, figured it out by this point, had a little bit of reference out. But there are, you know, features that don't look like Bill Duke, but the eyes especially made me think of like, I'll bleed you real quiet. You know? Probably the spookiest threat in an action film that I had, you know, at least that I had ever heard up to that point in my young life when I fell in love with the Predator. So yeah, this here I am sculpting some more. I think this is about where I call it good. You know, for a lot of the detail stuff, I got to take it off the turntable and, you know, try a bunch of stuff out and look at it from a bunch of different angles. Yeah, here he is. Getting dizzy. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, maybe some like lighting, so you can kind of see it under different lighting. And that is it. This is my sculpt of a gentleman, of Bill Duke's cousin, Bob Duke. This is Bob Duke. No relation to the Babadook.